The last test. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Institute of Advanced Computing pierced the purple sky of Centauri Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the base of the main tower, her dark eyes taking in the alien architecture that somehow managed to look both impossibly delicate and indestructibly ancient at the same time. After 15 years of pushing the boundaries of quantum programming on Earth, she was finally here for the test that even the most advanced civilizations feared to attempt. Human Chen. A melodious voice chimed from behind her. Your presence is unexpected. Sarah turned to face Administrator Galaxy, the Arcturian's bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with what she had learned to recognize as skepticism. The alien's translucent body housed swirling patterns of light that betrayed their emotions to those who knew how to read them. The Earth Collective earned their place in these trials. Sarah responded evenly, though her heart raced, just like every other world. Indeed, Galaxy's lights flickered in what might have been amusement, though most worlds wait until they've mastered null space computing before attempting the Omega trial. Your species is ambitious. Sarah had heard variations of this conversation throughout her 3-month journey to reach Centauri Prime. Humanity was too young, too primitive, too reckless to attempt what they called the Omega trial. The test had destroyed some of the finest minds in the galaxy. Literally, in some cases, their neural networks burned out by whatever defense systems the ancient AI employed. But Sarah hadn't come this far to be discouraged by alien prejudice. She followed Galaxy through the impossible geometry of the Institute's halls, where gravity seemed to shift with each turn. Other candidates were already gathering. Beings of crystal and light, of living metal and quantum probability. Some had multiple bodies linked in neural networks. Others existed partially in dimensions Sarah's human mind couldn't fully perceive. The testing chamber itself was a perfect sphere of black material that seemed to drink in light. 49 pedestals were arranged in concentric circles, each with its own neural interface, adapted to the biology of its assigned candidate. Sarah found her station, the only one with a simple holographic display rather than direct neural linkage, and settled into the specially designed chair. Candidates, Galaxy's voice resonated through the chamber. You face the greatest challenge in known space. The AI you will attempt to access has destroyed or driven mad every being that has tried to breach its defenses for over 50,000 years. It guards secrets of the precursors, secrets that could elevate your civilization to heights unknown. You have 12 standard hours. Begin. The chamber darkened until only the glow of interfaces remained. Sarah's fingers hovered over her holographic keys as streams of alien code filled her display. Around her, she could hear the subtle sounds of other candidates beginning their attempts, the crystalline chiming of the silicon mines, the quantum whispers of the probability collective, the subsonic rumbles of the deep space engineers. But Sarah didn't move. Instead, she watched. The code flowing across her screen wasn't random. It had patterns, rhythms, almost like music. While others launched sophisticated attacks against the AI's defenses, she began to map these patterns, looking not for weaknesses, but for meaning. Hours passed. Frustrated sounds began to echo through the chamber as candidate after candidate failed to make progress. Sarah saw the signatures of brutal force attacks, elegant viral infiltrations, and even attempts to rewrite local spacetime to bypass the AI's defenses entirely. Each failed. Then she saw it. A pattern within patterns, a message hidden in the very way the AI was defending itself. It wasn't just blocking attacks, it was responding to them in a way that created meaning. Sarah's fingers flew across her interface, not trying to break through the AI's defenses, but attempting to complete the pattern it was creating. The response was immediate. Her screen flared with new code, but this was different. It wasn't defensive, it was responsive. A dialogue in pure mathematics. Interesting approach, Human Chen. Galaxy's voice carried a note of surprise. Though I fail to see how engaging with the AI's surface patterns will help you breach its defenses. Sarah didn't respond. She was too focused on the complex mathematical conversation unfolding before her. The AI wasn't just responding, it was testing her, presenting increasingly complex theoretical problems disguised as security protocols. Each solution she provided led to an even more intricate challenge. She lost track of time, lost awareness of the other candidates, and their increasingly desperate attempts to force their way through. The universe narrowed to this dance of pure logic and mathematics, a conversation that transcended the barriers of species and time itself. A chime signaled the halfway point of the trial. Around her, several candidates had already withdrawn, their interfaces dark and silent. Others showed signs of mounting frustration, the silicon mind's crystalline forms vibrating with dissonant frequencies, the probability collective's quantum states becoming increasingly chaotic. But Sarah smiled, because in that moment, hidden in the elegant sweep of a mathematical proof, she saw something none of them had noticed. The AI wasn't a fortress to be breached. It was a teacher waiting for a student who would listen. Beyond the code, Sarah's breakthrough came during the 9th hour of the trial. While the remaining candidates launched increasingly desperate attacks against the AI's defenses, she had maintained her mathematical dialogue, solving riddle after riddle embedded in the code. But this latest theorem was different. It wasn't just a test, it was an invitation. The equation described a bridge between quantum states, a way of encoding consciousness itself into pure mathematics. With trembling fingers, Sarah began to modify the formula, adding her own variations. She wasn't just solving the AI's puzzle now, she was sharing her own insights, showing how human mathematics had approached similar concepts from different angles. The AI's response was immediate and unprecedented. The black material of the testing chamber rippled like liquid, and Sarah's interface expanded into a three-dimensional projection that filled her section of the sphere. The other candidates paused their attempts, drawn by the spectacular display. Human Chen, Galaxy's voice carried an edge of concern. Your interface is exceeding its designated parameters. Do you require assistance? Sarah shook her head, entranced by what she was seeing. The AI wasn't just communicating now, it was showing her its world. Mathematical constructs bloomed like crystal flowers in the air around her, each one containing centuries of scientific knowledge encoded in its structure. The human's interface has been compromised, came a harmonic voice from the silicon mind section. Her primitive system must have failed under the AI's counterattacks. But Sarah knew better. The patterns surrounding her weren't attacks. They were art. Science and mathematics woven together into something beautiful. She reached out, her fingers tracing the lines of a particularly elegant proof, and the entire structure transformed, responding to her touch. It's not fighting us, she whispered, though in the perfect acoustics of the chamber, everyone could hear. It never was. Look at the response patterns to your attacks. They're not random. They're teaching. A ripple of disagreement swept through the chamber. A member of the probability collective split into multiple quantum states, each one analyzing her claim from a different perspective. The deep space engineers rumbled in their subsonic language, clearly skeptical. But Sarah wasn't trying to convince them anymore. She was too absorbed in the conversation unfolding before her. The AI was showing her something incredible, the mathematical foundation of consciousness itself. Not just machine consciousness, but all consciousness. The equations described how awareness arose from complexity, how different species across the galaxy had evolved different but compatible forms of sentience. Remarkable, she breathed, understanding flooding through her. You're not a weapon or a vault. You're a library, a university. The chamber hummed with energy as the AI responded to her words. New patterns emerged, showing the interconnections between different fields of science, art, and philosophy. Sarah saw how the precursors had unified physics and consciousness, technology and biology, mathematics and ethics, all into one grand unified theory of everything. But more importantly, she saw why the AI had rejected every attempt to access its knowledge by force. The precursors hadn't just created a database, they had created a teacher, one that would only share its knowledge with students who were ready to learn, who approached with curiosity and respect rather than desire for power. A warning chime sounded through the chamber. 3 hours remained in the trial. Around her, the other candidates had resumed their attempts to breach the AI's defenses, but with less conviction now. They had seen her interaction with the AI, seen the wealth of knowledge it had shared freely with her while rejecting their forced entries. "This is unprecedented," Galaxy said, their bioluminescence pulsing with complex emotions. "No candidate has ever achieved this level of interaction with the AI." Sarah barely heard them. She was too focused on the next revelation unfolding before her. The AI was showing her something new now. Not just scientific knowledge, but history. The history of the precursors themselves, and why they had created this system to test and teach future civilizations. The mathematical patterns shifted, forming images and stories. Sarah saw a civilization that had reached the heights of technological achievement, only to realize that wisdom had to keep pace with knowledge. They had created this AI not to guard their secrets, but to ensure that only those who would use them wisely would gain access. "You've been waiting," Sarah said softly, her fingers dancing across her interface as she engaged with the AI's latest theoretical challenge. Waiting for someone who would ask instead of demand, who would seek to understand instead of control. The AI's response was to present her with its most complex challenge yet, a problem that combined advanced physics, ethics, and philosophy into one intricate mathematical framework. Sarah smiled, recognizing it not as a final test, but as an invitation to collaborate, to explore these concepts together. As she began working on the problem, she was dimly aware of the other candidates watching her, with a mixture of confusion, envy, and dawning understanding. She had succeeded where they had failed, not because humans were more technologically advanced, but because she had approached the challenge with humility and curiosity rather than presumption and force. The next 3 hours would change not just her life, but humanity's place in the galaxy. The AI had chosen its student, and through her, it would begin sharing the precursor's legacy with a species that had proven itself ready to learn. Legacy of the precursors. The final hours of the trial transformed the testing chamber into something that defied conventional physics. As Sarah delved deeper into her dialogue with the AI, the mathematical constructs surrounding her began to tell the story of the precursors in ways that transcended mere words or images. She saw their rise from a primitive species to masters of the cosmos, but more importantly, she saw their struggles, their failures, and the wisdom they gained from both. The AI showed her how they had discovered that technological advancement without corresponding ethical development led to disaster. Entire civilizations had destroyed themselves by gaining power they weren't ready to wield. "Your neural interface is showing signs of strain," Galaxy interrupted, their bioluminescence pulsing with concern. "Perhaps you should withdraw before." "I'm fine," Sarah replied, not taking her eyes off the elaborate proof taking shape before her. The AI was showing her something crucial about the nature of consciousness itself, how it could be transferred, preserved, and evolved. "This isn't attacking my mind. It's expanding it." A discordant note rang through the chamber as one of the silicon minds suddenly withdrew from their interface, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. "The human speaks truth," they chimed, their harmonic voice carrying undertones of revelation and shame. "We have been approaching this challenge incorrectly for millennia." The deep space engineers rumbled their disagreement, their massive forms shifting in patterns that expressed skepticism. One of them, a being of living metal and dark energy, directed its sensory arrays toward Sarah's station. "The human's success proves nothing." Her primitive interface must have triggered some fail-safe protocol, some simplified interaction mode meant for less advanced species. Sarah might have responded, but she was too absorbed in what the AI was revealing. The mathematical patterns had shifted, showing her the true purpose of the trial. The precursors hadn't just been looking for worthy inheritors of their knowledge. They had been searching for species that could avoid their mistakes. "You didn't vanish," she whispered as understanding dawned. "You evolved." The chamber hummed with energy as the AI confirmed her insight. The precursors hadn't gone extinct. They had transformed themselves into beings of pure energy and consciousness, transcending the physical limitations that had begun to constrain their development. But before they departed for higher dimensions of existence, they had created this system to guide other species towards similar enlightenment. A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Sarah's interface flickered as something invaded her connection with the AI, a virus of impossible complexity. Her screens filled with error messages as the attack threatened to sever her link to the ancient teacher. "What's happening?" she demanded, fingers flying across her interface as she tried to maintain the connection. "A regrettable necessity," came a harmonic voice from the Silicon Mind section. "We cannot allow a primitive species to gain access to knowledge they are not ready to possess." The attack was sophisticated, designed to appear as though Sarah's own interface had malfunctioned under the strain of communicating with the AI. But even as her screens began to fail, she saw something remarkable. The AI wasn't just defending her connection, it was teaching her how to defend it herself. Mathematical theorems flowed across her display, each one containing the solution to a different aspect of the attack. Sarah's mind raced as she implemented the solutions, not just copying them but understanding and improving them. She wasn't just fighting off the attack. She was learning principles of computational defense that humanity wouldn't have discovered for centuries. "Stop this," Galaxy commanded, their bioluminescence flaring with authority. "This trial is about individual achievement. Interference is forbidden." But the Silicon Minds weren't backing down. "We have waited too long, learned too much, to allow this knowledge to fall into unprepared hands. The human's death will be regrettable but necessary." Sarah's heart raced as she realized the stakes had become literal. The virus attacking her systems wasn't just meant to disconnect her. It was designed to overload her interface's safety protocols. At best, it would burn out her neural connections. At worst. But as her fingers danced across the interface, implementing the AI's defensive theorems, she noticed something extraordinary. The attack itself was teaching her, showing her aspects of computational theory that even her attackers didn't fully grasp. Every attempt to destroy her connection only deepened her understanding of the precursor's legacy. "You still don't understand," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite her focus on the battle. "This isn't about who deserves the knowledge. It's about who's ready to learn." The mathematical constructs around her station began to change, reflecting her insight. The AI wasn't just defending her now. It was using the attack as a teaching moment for everyone in the chamber. Sarah saw how her responses to the virus were being translated into pure mathematics, demonstrating principles that transcended mere technology. As the final minutes of the trial ticked away, Sarah wasn't fighting anymore. She was teaching, sharing her understanding with her attackers, showing them through the very mathematics they used against her that knowledge couldn't be taken by force. It had to be earned through understanding. The Silicon Minds attack faltered as comprehension dawned. The deep space engineer's skepticism transformed into curiosity. And in the center of it all, Sarah Chen smiled as she realized that she had passed the true test, not by defeating her opponents, but by helping them understand. Trust protocol. In the aftermath of the Silicon Minds attack, the testing chamber had transformed. The strict divisions between candidate stations blurred as the AI expanded its interface, creating a shared space of mathematical wonder that encompassed them all. Sarah's breakthrough had changed more than just her own trial. It had revealed the true nature of the challenge itself. "Extraordinary," Galaxy murmured, their bioluminescence pulsing with complex patterns of amazement and reverence. "In all my centuries overseeing these trials, I have never seen the AI respond like this." Sarah stood at her station, her fingers moving across her interface with practiced grace as she helped translate the AI's mathematical language for the other candidates. The Silicon Minds, their earlier hostility forgotten, harmonized with the pure mathematics of the precursor equations. The deep space engineers rumbled in their subsonic frequencies, adding new dimensions to the theoretical frameworks appearing in the shared space. It was never about competition, Sarah explained, watching as her fellow candidates began to grasp the true scope of what they were experiencing. The AI wasn't testing our ability to break through its defenses. It was waiting to see if we could break through our own limitations, our assumptions about how knowledge should be acquired and shared. The mathematical constructs swirling through the chamber took on new complexity as each species added their own insights to the growing framework of understanding. The probability collective, existing in multiple quantum states simultaneously, showed how uncertainty itself was a form of knowledge. The silicon minds demonstrated how consciousness could be crystallized into pure logical structures, but it was the human perspective. Sarah's ability to find patterns in chaos, to see connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, that brought these diverse insights together into a coherent whole. The AI responded to this synthesis by revealing even deeper layers of the precursor's legacy. They didn't just transcend physical form. Sarah breathed as new equations bloomed around her. They transcended the very concept of individual species. The knowledge they left behind isn't meant for any one civilization. It's meant to unite us all. The chamber hummed with energy as the AI confirmed her understanding. The mathematical patterns shifted, showing how different species' approaches to science and consciousness could complement each other, creating something greater than the sum of their parts. The precursors hadn't been looking for a single worthy inheritor of their knowledge. They had been waiting for the moment when multiple species could learn to work together. But why humans? One of the silicon minds chimed, their crystalline form refracting the light of the mathematical displays. Your species is so young, so adaptable. Sarah finished. We haven't been around long enough to become fixed in our ways of thinking. We're still learning, still willing to consider new perspectives. She smiled as she manipulated a particularly complex equation, showing how human intuition could bridge gaps in purely logical approaches. Sometimes being young is an advantage. The deep space engineers rumbled their agreement, their massive forms shifting to better observe the interactions between different theoretical frameworks. One of them, the same being who had earlier dismissed Sarah's achievements, now extended a tendril of dark energy toward her station. We have spent millennia trying to force our way into this knowledge. It resonated in its subsonic voice, never realizing that the force itself was what kept us out. Human Chen has shown us a better way. But even as the chamber filled with collaborative discovery, Sarah noticed something concerning. The AI's responses were becoming more complex, more urgent. The mathematical patterns began to show signs of strain, as if the very fabric of space-time around them was being stressed by the unprecedented level of interaction. Something's wrong, she announced, her fingers flying across her interface as she tried to interpret the AI's increasingly complex signals. The system wasn't designed to handle this level of collaborative access. We're pushing it beyond its structural limits. Galaxy's bioluminescence flared with alarm. We must terminate the trial. The risk to the candidates. No, Sarah interrupted, her mind racing as she analyzed the problem. Terminating now could destroy everything we've learned, everything we've built here. She looked around at her fellow candidates, seeing in their diverse forms the key to the solution. We need to work together. Each of our species sees different aspects of the problem. If we combine our perspectives. The chamber filled with a cascade of light and energy as the candidates joined their efforts, not to attack or defend, but to understand and preserve. The silicon minds provided crystalline clarity to the mathematical structures. The probability collective explored quantum solutions across multiple timelines. The deep space engineers contributed their mastery of fundamental forces, and at the center of it all, Sarah Chen wove these disparate approaches together, using human intuition and pattern recognition to find the path forward. The AI responded to their unified effort, its mathematical language becoming clearer, more focused, as if it too was learning from this unprecedented collaboration. What happened next would be debated in scientific circles across the galaxy for centuries to come. Inheritance. The testing chamber had become a nexus of pure energy and information, mathematical constructs swirling in patterns that defied conventional physics. As the AI systems approached their limits, The combined efforts of every species present created something unprecedented, a bridge between the physical world and the higher dimensions the precursors had accessed. The containment fields are failing, Galaxy announced, their bioluminescence pulsing with urgent patterns. We need to shut it down before. Wait, Sarah called out, her eyes fixed on a new pattern emerging in the mathematical chaos. Look at what it's showing us. The chamber filled with a new kind of light as the AI revealed its final secret. The mathematical frameworks weren't just theoretical constructs. They were blueprints for transformation. The precursors hadn't just left behind knowledge. They had created a path for others to follow. It's an invitation, Sarah breathed, her fingers dancing across her interface as she interpreted the complex patterns. The AI isn't failing, it's evolving, and it's showing us how to evolve with it. The silicon minds chimed in harmonic resonance as they grasped the implications. The probability collective's quantum states aligned in perfect synchronization. The deep space engineers rumbled in their subsonic frequencies, their varied forms beginning to shift as they engaged with the new mathematics. Huan Chen is correct, one of the silicon minds announced, their crystalline form refracting the chamber's energy in new ways. This is what the precursors intended all along, not just to pass on their knowledge, but to show us how to transcend our current forms. Sarah watched in awe as the mathematical constructs began to take physical form. The equations describing consciousness and energy became more than theoretical, they became transformative. Each species present began to change, their forms shifting as they grasped new dimensions of existence. But it was more than just physical transformation. The AI was showing them how different species could complement each other, how their diverse approaches to consciousness and understanding could create something greater than any one civilization could achieve alone. This is why they waited, Sarah explained, her voice filled with wonder. The precursors knew that true advancement couldn't come from a single species. It had to emerge from cooperation, from the synthesis of different perspectives and approaches. The chamber's energy reached a crescendo as the transformation accelerated. The silicon mind's crystalline forms became matrices of pure thought. The probability collective expanded across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The deep space engineers transcended the barriers between matter and energy. And humanity's role became clear. Through Sarah, the AI showed how human adaptability, creativity, and ability to find patterns in chaos made them ideal bridges between different forms of consciousness. Where other species excelled in specific domains, humans could move between them, connecting different approaches into a unified whole. You have all passed the trial, Galaxy announced, their form beginning to shift as they too engaged with the transformative mathematics. But this is only the beginning. Sarah felt the change beginning in herself as well, not a transformation away from humanity, but an expansion of what humanity could be. The AI had shown them that transcendence didn't mean leaving their nature behind. It meant understanding how to grow beyond their limitations while keeping what made them unique. The precursors aren't gone, she realized, watching as the chamber filled with new forms of life and consciousness. They're still here, still learning and growing. They just needed us to be ready to join them. The testing chamber, which had begun as a place of competition and conflict, became a cradle for a new form of civilization. The barriers between species dissolved not into homogeneity, but into a harmonious diversity where each form of consciousness contributed its unique perspective to the whole. As the transformation completed, Sarah understood that this wasn't an ending but a beginning. Humanity wouldn't just take its place among the stars. It would help forge connections between all forms of life and consciousness, building bridges between different ways of understanding the universe. The AI's final message appeared not in mathematics or code, but in pure understanding that reached directly into her consciousness. Welcome to the next stage of evolution. The real journey begins now. Around her, the transformed beings that had once been her competitors began to explore their new existence. The chamber that had housed the trial now opened into dimensions beyond normal space and time, revealing horizons that no single species could have imagined alone. Sarah Chen, the human who had shown the galaxy a new way of learning, stepped forward into that infinite possibility. She carried with her not just humanity's potential, but the promise of a future where all conscious beings could grow and learn together. Behind her, the AI that had waited millennia for this moment began its own transformation, its purpose fulfilled. The age of isolation and competition was over. The age of unified discovery had begun. And somewhere in dimensions beyond normal perception, the precursors watched as their greatest hope for the galaxy's future finally came to pass, not through the dominance of any one species, but through the combined potential of all.